Welcome to the Eldorado Gaming Deck Series. Eldorado Gaming is your site for premier accessories like metal dice and playmats. Eldorado Gaming sponsors the My Mythical Meta podcast, and the Deck Series features Magic the Gathering decks played by the My Mythical Meta crew. Subscribe to the channel and comment with your own suggestions or questions for the players. Welcome back to the Eldorado Gaming Deck Series, where me, Derek, Randy, Benjamin, we share the decks that we play in our meta. Today is a special day. We've been doing our Spellslinger series. This is my Spellslinger control deck. I like to play a lot more aggro and a lot more just board presence, battle cruiser magic. But this is a really fun deck that controls the board until I can still overwhelming stampede and knock people's life points out. Before we get to it though, I just want to remind our viewers real quick that we are on the road to 1K. If you like our content, our deck techs, our essential concepts, and our Magic Players Play Worse Games series, please subscribe so that you don't miss the new stuff that's coming up, so that you don't miss new decks and our next archetype. So be on the lookout and please subscribe. All right, Benjamin, ask me about my deck.
All right,
I'm ready to gush knowledge.
You just told us it's your Spellslinger deck. Your commander is Lord of the Nazgul. Tell us what Lord of the Nazgul does.
He's so good. 3 blue-black for a 4/3 with flying, a Wraith Noble. He has one line of text that doesn't matter. Wraiths you control have protection from ring bearers. This is not extremely common in our meta. I had a side question. Does protection from ring bearers mean you can block a ring bearer?
Not if you have greater power.
So yeah, that's the problem with ring bearers in the first place, is getting hit by them. So anyway, that top line of text doesn't matter. But here's what does matter. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 3/3 black Wraith creature token with menace. And then, if you control 9 or more Wraiths, then Wraiths you control have base power and toughness 9/9 until end of turn. So each time you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you get to create a creature token, a Wraith, and then it checks to see if you have 9 of them. If you have 9 Wraiths on your battlefield. And if you do, boop, bloop, bloop, they all get powered up into 9/9s for the remainder of the turn. So if they get that power up, if they get that 9/9, then I'm swinging into somebody. Somebody's going to get a big hurt. And that's what is so fun about this deck is I'm trying to control and draw cards. And while I do that, I'm creating these Wraiths. So my board presence is steadily growing. And they're 3/3s, which is not huge, but it is significant.
Yeah, it's not a 1/1.
It's not a 1/1, but I can still use them for chump blocking if I need to, or stealing the Monarch if I need to. Because they've got menace. Yeah, things like that. And then once I get 9, I try to swing out and knock somebody out.
We divide our deck building template into a few categories. Obviously, you've got your lands. You also have your ramp, your card draw, your interaction and protection, and then your game plan that includes your synergy cards and your finishers. So we're going to go through each of these categories, and I'm going to ask you to highlight cards that really stand out in that category. If you want to see the full deck list, the link is in the description down below, and you can also check out our Archidect page, where we put all of our deck lists that we feature on this show on our Archidect page at archidect.com. We're going to start with the basics. Your land looks like a fairly basic land package.
Yeah, it's pretty standard. I've got 37 lands, 11 islands, 9 swamps. I have a lot more blue in this deck than I do black because I'm doing the counterspell thing and whatever. 2 lands that I think matter. Bojuka Bog is going to hit one of my opponent's graveyards. And we've said this in the past. If your deck has black in it, stick a Bojuka Bog in there. You'll never regret it. Unless it's in your opening hand and you exile somebody's rampant growth or something.
Right.
But the other land that definitely matters is Minas Morgul Dark Fortress. Not the Cabal Coffers reskin, but Minas Morgul Dark Fortress. Legendary land, it enters the battlefield tapped and taps for a swamp. The reason it's here is because you can pay 3 and a black and tap it to put a shadow counter on target creature. For as long as that creature has a shadow counter on it, it's also a Wraith. So I can change a creature to start counting as a Wraith.
Nice.
And then the shadow counter is not just a fancy name for a counter. It actually gives the creature the ability Shadow, which means that it can only block or be blocked by other creatures with shadow,
Yeah.
which are extremely rare.
Yes.
So you're basically saying that one of your creatures is going to be unblockable for a little while.
Yeah. And it can't block, but who cares? Because you're swinging. You're not blocking with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is great for stealing the Monarch, or I've got Bident of Thassa in this deck, so if I just need to draw a card, just sneak my way in with Shadow.
Nice. Okay, and then otherwise they're all fixing.
Just command tower-like stuff.
Yeah. Let's look at your ramp package. This looks like a pretty standard ramp package. Artifact ramp with Soul Ring, Wafers, Bauble, Arcane Signet. I noticed that there's 10 pieces of ramp here. That's pretty standard for a commander deck.
Yeah, the curve on this deck is rather low, so because it's all instance and sorcery control stuff. So I felt like 10 was okay. Normally, for my personal style, I like to push it a little higher, 14 to 16 pieces of ramp. But for this deck, I felt it was all right. The only piece of ramp, or the only card that I'm counting as ramp that matters here, is Jace's Sanctum. Jace's Sanctum is a 4-mana enchantment that makes your instant and sorcery spells cost 1 less to cast. So now my Arcane Denial costs 1 blue, and things like that. It also lets you scry whenever you cast an instant or sorcery,
which really helps you dig through your deck because you've got so many instants and sorceries.
Yep.
How many instants do you have in this deck?
I have 35 instants in this deck.
And then another 5 sorceries.
And then 5 other sorceries. That's right.
So 40 cards that will scry when you have, that will add scry to them when you have Jace's Sanctum in play.
Yeah,
so you're
absolutely
digging fast to your deck.
We've mentioned a couple times that idea of having a critical mass of something in your deck in order for it to feel like it's doing the thing, in order for it to feel like it's meeting its archetype's expectations. And usually that number is about 30. So I've got 35 instants. This deck very much feels, when I pilot it, like draw, go. I'm going to draw a card, and then 4 out of the 7 cards in my hand are reactions. So I can just wait, say, okay, pass, and I'll react when it suits me.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very good. All right.
Including making surprise blockers during somebody else's turn.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. With 35 instants, if someone swings into you, they don't know that, hey, you may make 3 blockers and ambush them with it.
And draw cards.
That's right.
Because the instants I'm going to use are going to be things like Anticipate or Dig Through Time. And I'm just going to refill my hand, make surprise blockers all at the same time. Yeah.
Well, since you're talking about card draw, let's get into that section. You have 13 pieces of dedicated card draw. Now, these aren't the only things that draw cards, right?
Some of these things that draw cards also do something else. So there's more instants and sorceries in here. You know, Opt and Preordain are in here. Impulse, Dig Through Time, Anticipate. But I've also got Baral, Chief of Compliance. Now, he's also ramp. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less. But I have him in my card draw category because whenever you counter a spell, you may draw a card, and if you do, discard a card. So this deck's got plenty of counterspells in it. And so Baral's second ability, if he's out, is going to be triggering quite a bit.
Yeah. Nice. So he makes your counterspells cheaper and then lets you loot with them.
Precisely. So now, it's not draw, but I put it in this category. I do have a Sensei's Divining Top in this deck. Sensei's Top is an incredible card. You can pay 1 to look at the top 3 cards of your library and put them back in any order. This is really good because, you know, if it's turn 5 or later, I don't need lands anymore. You know, and if I've got a land in my top 3, I can just keep pushing it to the bottom. Or whatever. And then
if you've got a scry, you move it to the top and then put it on the bottom of your library.
Oh, yeah, that's true. And then you can also tap to draw a card and put Sensei's Top on the top of your library. This is really awesome when somebody plays a Destroy All Artifacts. You know, if somebody plays a board wipe, like, I don't think many people are going to blast a Beast Within on a Sensei's Top knowing that it can save itself by tapping. It can hide itself on top of the deck.
But it can get caught up in a Farewell or Vandal Blast or something, so you just...
Yep, and you get to draw the card. You get to draw the card that you put on top there, and you know that your next turn is a 1-mana artifact that's not taking up your whole turn. You can just play Sensei's Top again. I also stuck Mystic Confluence in this category. Mystic Confluence is a counterspell, but I've got it in this category because usually I'm going to staple draw a card to it, either once or twice.
Yeah, I feel like that's the most common mode is counter target spell unless its controller plays 3, draw a card, draw a card.
Very common.
I mean, drawing 2 cards
Although
while you
I have
counterspell.
had to do a counter target spell unless its controller pays 3 twice. I have had to do that before, but it's always worth it when you do.
Mm-hmm. I've used it for the second mode, to return target creature to its owner's hand.
Mm-hmm.
Returning 3 things is not bad. Clear, and you're like, okay, now I can get through, because now with all my menacing wraiths, they don't have enough blockers.
Exactly.
And then earlier you mentioned Bite into Thassa.
Yep. Bite into Thassa is a 4-mana artifact. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. The second use, I don't use it often, but I have.
It can clear out blockers.
Yeah, exactly. You pay 1 and a blue, tap it. Creatures your opponents control attack this turn if able. You can force them to attack as much as they can and leave them shields down. This is also great for people who have just utility creatures that they keep on the back line, like Oracle of Moldiah or something. You can just say, no, you have to swing with them. And then I'll block with a Wraith. Bam! And he just slaps Oracle of Moldiah down.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into your protection and interaction package here, especially your protection. Let's do that first.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
your deck is really, really dependent on the commander, right?
Without the commander, it's just control with no win con, which is, we all know, miserable.
Mm-hmm.
There's no fun to be had by anyone there.
So once you get Lord of the Nazgul on the battlefield, what do you use to protect it?
Yeah, so I've got to keep Lord of the Nazgul on the battlefield. I do have some Lightning Greaves in this deck. Always very nice to have. I can move them around for free, which is always very good. But the important thing about this deck, something that I did differently in this deck than with others, is that my protection spells are also instants. They're also instant speed reaction. I've got Dark Dabbling, which has regenerate target creature, draw a card, and it has Spell Mastery. If there are 2 or more instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard, regenerate each other creature you control.
You almost always have Spell Mastery in this deck.
Exactly. It only takes 2 to have Spell Mastery, and now I can Heroic Intervention my creatures after a board wipe, basically, and draw a card. Like, that just... It's really nice to have Dark Dabbling here. And then I've got a whole suite of these black instants that save a creature from death and return it to life. So Fake Your Own Death, Feign Death, Not Dead After All, and Supernatural Stamina. I like Not Dead After All. So those 4 cards all basically do the same thing, which is until end of turn, target creature you control gains. When this creature dies, return it to the battlefield, XYZ, and then 1 or 2 other things. So return it to the battlefield tapped, return it to the battlefield, in this case, for Not Dead After All, with a Wicked Roll token attached to it. A Wicked Roll token gives it +1/+1, and if that token's put into the graveyard, each opponent loses 1 life. So the creature comes back stronger with Not Dead After All.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I have this protection in the form of instants because whenever you cast the instant in order to protect him, you still create the Wraith, you still create the Wraith token, and then Lord of the Nazgul comes back.
Yeah.
So my board state really hasn't changed. It's not like Lord of the Nazgul or any of these Wraiths have conditions that require Lord of the Nazgul to survive. I am going to get a Wraith each time I cast one of these.
Yeah. So you always have protection for Lord of the Nazgul, and you get a Wraith for protecting him.
Exactly.
So you get to build up your board state when they try to remove him.
I get a bonus Wraith each time somebody tries to remove Lord of the Nazgul.
Right. Oh, that's messed up.
Yeah.
All right. Now, one of my favorite cards you have in your protection category is Darkness.
Yeah.
No one expects the darkness.
No one expects darkness. No one expects a fog when you're playing Dimir.
Yeah, for folks that don't know, darkness is just fog and black. There it is.
Yeah, 1 black, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. No one expects it.
Right.
Somebody swings out with me with a bunch of tokens or a Voltron or whatever. Looks like you got lost. Should have brought a flashlight, buddy.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. Now, normally we suggest somewhere between 8 to 12 interaction cards that can interact with your opponent's plan. But this is your plan. So this is your synergy category. So you have 21 removal spells.
Isn't that miserable to play against?
Yes.
But that is the plan.
That is the plan.
That's
yes.
what we call control. Yeah, it's awesome. So I've got a few favorites. Let's look at Hellish Rebuke.
Okay.
Benjamin, have you seen this card? It came in the Forgotten Realms commander deck.
Huh.
2 and a black for Hellish Rebuke. Until end of turn, permanents your opponent's control gain When this permanent deals damage to the player who cast Hellish Rebuke, sacrifice this permanent. You lose 2 life. So you play it as soon as somebody's doing an Alpha Strike on you,
Right.
and then I'll just no
No
blocks
blocks.
as long as I survive, or as long as it's getting the creature that I want to kill.
Right.
And then they have to sacrifice it. There's no getting around it. So somebody can swing with their hexproof indestructible Voltron. Sorry, you have to sack it and lose 2 life. Hell demands its payment.
That's really good. That I had not seen that card before.
And I think I've hit somebody for like 7 creatures before and done like 14 damage with Hellish Rebuke. It's pretty great. It's really, really good. Now you have to take some damage to use it.
Right. Do you have
You
any
have to,
any
you have
life
to be
gain in this
willing to
deck?
take a hit.
Do you have any way to gain life?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. For the most part, you're not taking much damage, right? You've got sudden spoiling that can turn all the creatures into 0/2s.
Yes.
Right. You've got Aetherize that can return all attacking creatures to their owner's hand. Ether Spouts, which returns attacking creatures to the top or bottom of their owner's library.
Ether Spouts is brutal. So Aetherize is a major card we put in our Spellslinger card review last episode,
Yes.
which just returns attacking creatures to their player's hands. Ether Spouts costs only 1 additional mana, and instead of them getting it in their hand, they have to choose to put it on the top or bottom of their library.
Yeah.
So if it's their Voltron, they'll probably put it on top, and then it kills their draw. They don't get to draw any new cards, and then it sticks it right there. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And if they have like more than 1 creature they want to save and put on top of their library, you get to just kill their next couple of draws.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, really, really good. I'm looking at just the sheer number of counterspells. You've got Annul, Bluster Squall, Steel Sabotage, Arcane Denial, Counterspell, Countersquall, Disdainful Stroke, Mana Drain, Negate, Dissipate, Filter Out.
Yeah, so I'm doing
Undermine.
a deck purge right now.
And Insidious Will.
And any new listeners, every like 3 or 4 years, because I'm a prolific deck builder, I'm just always building decks. And then I'll play them 2 or 3 times, and then usually they get put on a back burner. So every 2 or 3 years, I do a deck culling where I take 20 to 30 of the decks I have and undo all of them and put them all back in binders. And when I was getting ready to deck tech for this deck, I took out a bad counterspell and got to put my mana drain in.
All right, I count 13 counterspells.
Yeah, there's counterspells, and then there's some exile, destroy. I'm looking, it's kind of crazy that I don't have Pongify and rapid hybridization in here.
Yeah, that is
because
weird.
I should.
Yeah, you should.
But I don't know. There are some 1 mana spells that I wanted to show off. Steel Sabotage and Annul are both really good. Steel Sabotage is 1 blue, and you get to choose one. Counter target artifact spell or return target artifact to its owner's hand. Y'all know me in the early game, I love to counter or destroy early game ramp.
Yeah.
To have Steel Sabotage in my opening hand, play my 1 island and pass the turn, and then to Steel Sabotage someone's Soul Ring, that feels so good to me.
And, of course, I've never seen a commander game without high-impact artifacts. Yeah. So, really easy.
So Steel Sabotage is far beyond just for the early game ramp. The Great Henge.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm going to spend 1 blue and counter it. That's Steel Sabotage, but Annul is the same. Counter target artifact or enchantment spell for 1 blue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, arguably, you could say that's better because I can counter 2 different spell types, artifact or enchantment. But like Benjamin just said, in Commander, you're almost guaranteed to hit something really good with this.
Yeah.
For only 1 blue.
Mm-hmm.
I also love Disdainful Stroke, counter target spell with mana value 4 or greater. So the card Disdainful Stroke basically guarantees tempo advantage.
Yeah, because they're spending 4 mana.
Because they're spending 4 and you're spending 2. Like, that's good.
Yeah, and most commanders cost 4 or more. Most high impact plays cost 4 or more, and you get to sit there with 2 mana and
just knock them down.
Knock them down.
All right.
Okay,
can we get to the fun stuff now?
Yeah. All right. So you've played your commander. Of course, you're drawing and you're removing and you're protecting your commander. You're getting your wraiths. How do you close out the game?
All right. So remember, for Lord of the Nazgul, I need 9. I need 9 wraiths on the board.
Yeah.
So in this deck, I have some ways to make bonus tokens and to turn those tokens into wraiths.
Okay.
So my bonus token makers are Talrand Sky Summoner, Murmuring Mystic, and Sedgemoor Witch. We've talked about Talrand for basically 3 episodes in a row now. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you create a 2/2 blue drake with flying. Murmuring Mystic costs the same mana cost, 3 and a blue, so still costs 4. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/1 bird illusion creature token with flying. Okay, so I'm still creating some bonus tokens there. And then Sedgemoor Witch. Sedgemoor Witch is a tad cheaper, 2 and a black for a 3/2 human warlock. Hey, she's got menace and ward.
Yeah, but this ward, that doesn't count.
Yeah, ward pay 3 life. But she's got Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/1 pest creature token. Pests have the bonus ability whenever this creature dies, you gain 1 life.
Okay,
Hey, I've got some life gain in this deck.
Hey, there you go.
Okay. I have one more token maker. It's an instant called Zot's Will. It costs 4 and a black. It has 2 modes, but if you control your commander, you can choose both. The first one says each opponent sacrifices a creature they control with the greatest power. I like this.
Yes.
It doesn't give me the choice, but at least it takes their biggest thing off the board. It may not take off the greatest ability. It may not get the thing that's helping their game plan the most, but it is taking the biggest body they have off the board. And then the second mode, and remember, when it has multiple modes like this and you're getting them, it goes top to bottom. You go down the row like that. So the first one was each opponent sacks a creature. The second, exile all cards from all opponents' graveyards.
That
then
already is
create X01 black thrall creature tokens, where X is the greatest power among creature cards exiled this way. So you look through all the creatures that they just exiled, you find the biggest one, and I get the number of thralls equal to that power.
Nice.
Thralls are just 0/1 tokens.
Well,
Usually
but you're
they're
gonna
blockers or sacrifice fodder. But as you'll see in my next section, those thralls hopefully will not stay thralls for long.
Yep, you're gonna turn them into 9/9 wraiths.
Because I am going to transform them into wraiths. I have 2 cards in the deck that change creature types. I've got Arcane Adaptation, which is a 3 mana enchantment. Choose a creature type. Creatures you control are the chosen type, in addition to their other types. So now, all of the drakes, birds, pests, and thralls I have are also wraiths. Hopefully, with Lord of the Nazgul out, this means I only need his ability to trigger 3 or 4 times. I don't need to straight up play 9 instants in order to get his ability to work. If I can get a little bit of this synergy going, then I don't need to cast as many spells in order to get my wraiths to go off. I've got Arcane Adaptation. I also have Maskwood Nexus,
Which can just make wraith tokens.
which can make wraith tokens for me. I can pay 3 and tap it to create a 2/2 blue shapeshifter creature token with changeling.
And
So
this
these count as wraiths.
this is one of those things. If you watched our Spellslinger episode, you know that one of the frustrating things could be a do nothing turn where you hold up interaction and then no one does anything worth countering or removing. Well, having something you can sink mana into is a great way to mitigate that. So you're like, okay, I'm gonna hold up Bluster Squall or Disdainful Stroke, whatever, and then you didn't play anything that I wanted to counter. All right, well, let me just make a token.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Let me just get my bonus wraith. So every turn, let me guarantee that I'm getting an extra wraith onto the board.
But what's the more important ability on this one?
The more important one, is that creatures you control are every creature type.
Yeah.
Which includes wraith.
Yep.
So done, taken care of. That is a 4 mana artifact.
And then you have ways to find these.
And then I've got some bonus ways in the deck to tutor these out. I can search them out and find them. So in order to search out Maskwood Nexus, I've got a tutor called Fabricate. Fabricate costs 2 and a blue. Search your library for an artifact, reveal it, put it in your hand, shuffle your library. I'm just going to tutor for Maskwood Nexus. If I already have Maskwood Nexus in my hand, that's fine. It's going to get me a Wraith and my Soul Ring. You know? It's going to get me a Wraith and
Lightning
Felwar
Greaves.
Stone. Like it's just, or
Yeah.
Bident of Thassa.
Yeah. Oh, that's a
I've
good
got plenty of other targets that I can use. I can search out Sensei's Divining Top if I need to. But the main target here is Maskwood Nexus. And then I have a way to search out Arcane Adaptation. This card is called Perplex. Perplex is an instant. It costs 1 blue-black. Counter target spell unless its controller discards his or her hand. So
Pretty.
it's decent. I have cast it, and I've had both outcomes. I've successfully countered the spell, and I've had people just choose to discard their hand instead. But going, discarding your entire hand, that's fine. But the actual reason that it's in this deck, beyond being a counterspell, is the transmute ability. So transmute for 1 blue black, you discard the card, and then you can search your library for a card with the same converted mana cost as this card. Reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle. Do it only as a sorcery. So I can transmute Perplex into Arcane Adaptation because they are both mana value 3. That's pretty cool. To
Yeah.
have a counterspell that can back up be an Arcane Adaptation, it just seems really perfect for this deck.
Yeah. I think you have
Yeah.
another tutor here, Step Through,
Yes, I have one last card here.
which works really well when Maskwood Nexus is on the field because it lets you search
yeah.
for anything. But
The card is called Step Through, a sorcery from Modern Horizons 2. It costs 3 blue to return 2 target creatures to their owner's hands. At sorcery speed for 5, this is not a playable card in my opinion.
right.
I guess it's not completely unplayable if I'm super desperate, but the reason it's in this deck is it has wizard cycling. I love the fact that they're like, cycling? No, let's make it a tutor instead. Wizard cycling for 2. I can do this at instant speed. Discard Step Through and search my library for a wizard card. Reveal it, put it into my hand, and then shuffle. This deck has 3 wizards. It has Talrand Sky Summoner, who we mentioned before, Murmuring Mystic, who we mentioned already. Talrand is the one making drakes, Murmuring Mystic is the one making birds, and then the last wizard is the Archetype of Imagination.
I love this card as an overrun, just to make all your stuff unblockable.
Yeah, Archetype of Imagination is my last wizard in this deck. Creatures you control have flying, creatures your opponents control lose flying, and can't have or gain flying. So with this card, I can make all of my Wraiths unblockable. And if I can manage to get them into 9/9s, I have 9 9/9s. That's at minimum 81 power on the board, if not more, because I have more Wraiths.
Should knock
And
out
then
two players.
I should be able to take out 2 players with that. A lot of fun. I love this deck. This is the deck I was talking about in our strategy episode when I said I feel exhausted after playing this deck
Yeah.
because I am just hyper attuned and my mind is burning through all of the possibilities every time someone plays a card worth 4 or more.
Yeah.
I'm like,
You got to
should
think.
I counter that? Is that card good enough to lubricate the rest of their deck and push them to a win? Is that card going to kill me, or do I let it through? And to run through, the Doctor Strange time, the Doctor Strange
right.
time web of chain reactions, to do that for every card my 3 opponents play, it is exhausting. But I have won with this deck by doing a 9 Wraith overrun, and it feels pretty good.
Yeah.
I remember specifically a game where I etherized Randy's last attack that would have killed me and then wraithed him out for the end. So this deck is a lot of fun, and it is a challenging Spellslinger deck to play. I thought it was a perfect opportunity to do this deck tech. We've been talking about Spellslinger for 2 weeks now. This will be week 3. And, listener, if you're looking for a beginner Spellslinger list, or if you're looking to experiment with control, I think this is a good way to start because you've got a commander that will help you keep some walls up where you're not completely shields down the entire game. I feel like this deck's a little more forgiving. You still have the practice of countering something, and if you get it wrong, well, you still have some defenses up in the form of your Wraiths.
Right. That is one of the hardest parts about a Spellslinger deck is that you're not playing enough creatures to clog up the board. You don't have a board state, but Lord of the Nazgul gives you a board state. Yeah, very helpful.
So, Benjamin, what do you think of Lord of the Nazgul?
I think it's scary. I think that it would be a very complicated puzzle to play against, to try to bait out counterspells and try to get in through your defenses. I think it's a very good deck.
This deck is bracket 2.
No game changers?
There are no game changers in this deck. Mana Drain is not a game changer yet.
Okay, that's weird.
Oh, I checked.
Yeah. No, you're right. But
Sensei's Top is not a game changer. I mean, yeah, I think those are the only 2 cards that we could even say are like especially powerful.
Right. No, none of the rest of these would be would be crazy. But
You could certainly power this deck up, obviously,
right,
with
add in some like Force of Will or
Force of Will, any other free counter spells, Cyclonic Rift. This deck can definitely be powered up into a 3 or 4.
Mhm.
And listener, that's at your discretion. That's at your budget. You can certainly print out a Cyclonic Rift for this deck if you want to, using your home printer. That's another way to do it. But I don't usually proxy. I usually just build with the cards I have in my binders. I'm a deeply enfranchised player, so my Cyclonic Rift is elsewhere right now.
Yeah. But yeah.
But it will be dismantled soon. It'll be free.
Ooh. So this may become a bracket 3 deck shortly.
Yeah, so this deck might be powered up.
All right,
Man,
well,
yeah, a Fierce Guardianship would really make this nicely.
Oof. Then that way you have protection for Lord of the Nazgul on curve, and you get a Wraith out of it. Oof. Yeah, some free counter spells might be amazing for this deck. So not just Fierce Guardianship and Force of Will, but I'd probably put a whole bunch of them in there.
Yeah, foil, and there's
I'd
one
put
that
foil,
has...
maybe Rewind. It's not...
Yes, Rewind. And there's a few of these where it's counter something, untap lands. Rewind is 4 mana, counter target spell, untap up to 4 lands.
That way you can counter something and still have mana up to counter something else.
Right. There's a 3 mana one too, isn't there? And Joyra's on the art.
Is it counter target non-creature spell?
I think it's counter target non-creature spell. Unwind is the 3 mana. Counter target non-creature spell, untap up to 3 lands.
Yeah. That could be a good one too.
That should probably be in this deck.
Well,
so anyway, certainly plenty of changes that can be made to Lord of the Nazgul to power it up, make it better. But for me, this is not my forte. I was just experimenting with control, and so I wasn't going to blow a big budget on it.
It's good though.
But you certainly could.
Yeah,
that would make this deck better.
And the curve is actually... So these cards that we're suggesting at 3 and 4 mana might just be a little too much, because your counter spells top off at 3 mana. I guess you have Insidious Will at 4 mana, and Mystic Confluence at 5. But those are, they're not.
Those are
really...
a special case.
Yeah,
Insidious
You've got
Will
Aetherize...
has 3 modes on it.
What?
Insidious Will has 3 different modes on it.
Right, exactly, and so does Mystic Confluence.
Yeah.
So all your other counter spells and removal and everything else costs 3 or less. Even though some of these cards we say would be perfect, quote unquote, you have to be careful messing with your curve. Like, your curve is so smooth. This deck's average mana value is only 2.65.
Yeah.
And that's including... Yeah, and that's including, they're factoring in Dig Through Time as an 8 mana spell, which it's not.
Which it is not.
No.
Dig Through Time has Delve, so that's a 2 mana spell. Dig Through Time says it costs 8, but it's got Delve. You can exile cards from your graveyard while casting it to pay for 1.
And you're going to have tons of cards in your graveyard because you're constantly playing instants and sorceries that go straight to your graveyard.
Exactly. And this deck has no recursion, recast, or flashback plan. It's just trying to draw more. It's just trying to draw more.
Dig through the deck. Yeah.
Keep going. So this is blue. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. Put 2 of them into your hand and the rest in the bottom. Pretty good.
Anyways, yeah, the deck has a very, like I said, a very low curve. And so I don't know that adding, at Rewind, you have to have 4 lands to make it, it doesn't give you back its cost if you're using mana rocks.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that they're necessarily perfect, quote unquote. They're just things that our listeners may want to consider if you want to go a different route. There's so many removal spells. There's so many counter spells. Just pick the ones that you feel comfortable with. And it is good to get comfortable with certain cards, and that you get used to when to play them and how to play them, because control is hard, especially in a 4-player pod where your cards are trading 1 for 1. A counter spell or a removal spell, you're killing one thing, you're losing a card, they're losing a card. Your other 2 opponents are up a card. So you have to mitigate that. This deck does that by making tokens in response to you trading 1 for 1, so that you're actually up a card.
Yeah.
Right? Well, you're not up a card, you're even.
Right, you're even.
Whenever
you make that token, you're even with the other 2 players.
So you're not actually gaining advantage that way, except that you're keeping players down at various points in the game. So knowing when to keep players down and playing politics on who gets to keep what, and trying to maintain your board state, you're going to have to hold back. Sometimes you're going to want to, opt, preordain, anticipate to try to build a bunch of wraiths, but you need to leave mana open so they don't board wipe.
Yeah, these wraiths do not have haste or anything, so you're much better off making your wraiths during your opponent's turns. That way, whenever it gets to your turn, they're ready to go.
Definitely looks fun to pilot, though.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Just some reminders to our listeners: we are on the road to 1K. If you like this deck, If you think it's a good entry point for Control, please subscribe, share it with your friends. Share it with the Timmy in your group who hates spellcasters and spellslingers.
Right.
And say, try this. Benjamin, it is so funny the comments we've been getting on these Spellslinger clips on like TikTok. There are some people with hatred in their heart.
Deep-seated hatred. I've been looking at them.
There are some people with some hatred in their heart, but it's funny, and maybe they're the ones who need a taste of the dark side.
That's right. Come, we have Control and tokens.
We have Wraiths, and you can still overrun your enemies and still defeat them in combat. So we're on the road to 1K. Our percentages on YouTube, it says that 90% of our viewers are not subscribed. There's plenty of viewers out there so that we can hit 1K. So thank you very much for listening. Make sure to leave comments. If you've got suggestions for how this deck can be improved or changed, I think there's lots of different builds you could do. Tell us what you would do, and I want to hear about your Spellslinger control decks. If which colors do you like to use for control? I did blue-black here, but blue-red I think is the most common. Let me know. Let me know what you guys are running. You can follow us. You can email us directly at mymythicalmeta@gmail.com. And if you're interested in joining our Patreon, you can find us at patreon.com/mymythicalmeta.
All right, and viewers, tune in next time for a good deck.
This episode was sponsored by Eldorado Gaming. Use the promo code META for 10% off your order. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. This episode was edited by me, Travis Konishek, and our intro and outro music is by Tyler Heath of the Oh Hellos.